Welcome to Threatsafe. This is our podcast to help SMEs and SMBs and the people who manage IT within those businesses or responsible for IT to get the very best from the technology that they deploy and then also to manage their cyber security. Let's listen to this week's podcast. Hello everybody, welcome to Threatsafe, episode 16. I'm Martin Roberts, Managing Director of Neuways, a Zen0 company, and I'm here with...
I'm Toby Stevenson. I'm Chief Technology Officer at Neuways, a Zen0 company.
Okay, Toby, we've had a rash this week, I've noticed. I had a terrible rash, absolutely. And it's a terrible rash of companies asking us to complete the questionnaires they're getting from their insurance companies for cybersecurity, which we're delighted to do. As customers often say, we know more about their IT than they do. However, a bit of an appeal, folks, not just to our customers, but to if you're a customer of an MSP or an IT service provider of any sort, to be fair to them, these questionnaires actually take quite a lot of filling out, don't they?
They do, yeah. I mean, absolutely right. In many cases, we know the most about the IT estate and are best placed to fill in all the technical aspects. But it's still several hours of effort to complete it, and there's normally some effort. And my guess would be, again, it's probably an hour or so's worth of effort to share the answers back to the customer. So when we do them, we always make sure we book a call with the customer so that we run through it so they can understand the answers and why we've answered them in certain ways.
And of course, as with all insurance, if you want it to pay out in the event of a claim, the chances are, well, not the chances, it has to be accurate, and it has to take account of the actual situation, not the imagined situation or the desired situation. You have to be completely, let's be honest.
Yeah, it doesn't help anyone if you answer it in the way that you should answer it, if that's also not the truth.
Absolutely. And the one thing, Toby, you work directly with some insurers, I know for a fact, and we have negotiations with insurers about what certain things mean.
Very true. Yeah. So you can see the form and you think it's fairly black and white and it's binary, and it's a yes no answer to most of the time. And sometimes it just doesn't make any sense, and it's easy to fall into the trap saying, I don't understand the technical jargon, so I don't know how to answer this. But actually, sometimes the question in itself is ambiguous. And I always think that if there's any doubt, go back to them, because they would much rather you have that conversation with them so they can explain what it's all about and how you need to answer it, rather than you going down one particular tangent and answering it in a certain way, but really they mean something very different.
And we have, and I know you have been directly responsible for preventing the spend of certain monies on certain tooling, because the insurer was asking for one thing which they thought could be solved by a particular solution, but in reality, on closer inspection and on negotiation and discussion, it turned out that actually it wasn't required, or it was something else entirely.
Yeah, exactly. And that's not always the outcome you're going to get, but having that frank conversation with either the insurance company or with the insurance broker around what's in there and what they're asking of you, it is always worth doing. I mean, this particular thing was rather than on the form. This was after the form had been filled, and they come and said, "Yes, we'll give you cover, but you've got to do X, Y, and Z." Yes. Well, what do you mean by X, Y, and Z? And then we have that conversation, because ultimately they want to make sure that they don't have to pay out. And so it's in their interest to make sure you do it properly rather than just half do it or whatever.
Okay, so we know that you want cyber insurance, cybersecurity insurance.
It's a good thing to have. Good thing to have.
Yeah, and my position's changed on that over the years, because I think now it works for you and such like. The truth be told, though, is you need to minimize. You want to minimize the cost of that cyber insurance. When you're buying cyber insurance, you want to know it's good value for money, and secondly, you want to know it's going to pay out in the events that you expect. I guess one of the programs that we run is actually helping medium-sized enterprises, larger enterprises, run a program to get to a certain standard or on a framework, of their cybersecurity, so they can actually demonstrate to the insurers that they're in a particular place and it's audited on a regular basis.
Yeah. So there's a high probability that unless you've already undertaken some kind of framework-based program, you will not be doing all of the things that align with good cybersecurity practice.
Yeah.
And there'll be some of these things that are red flags for insurers.
Yeah.
A great example will be mandatory MFA for everybody, multi-factor authentication for everybody. That'll be one. And if you fill in a form and you fill it out brilliantly everywhere else, but say, no, we don't have mandatory MFA, people can use it if they want to, there's a high probability they will decline to give you any cover at all.
Yeah.
Or they will give you cover and say, on the proviso that you mandate MFA.
Yeah.
And that means then you have to do it, because if you don't and you try to claim, they'll say, do you have MFA turned on for everyone, like we said? Oh, yeah. No, we didn't. Oh, okay. Well, you're only going to get a partial payout or no payout at all.
Absolutely. And I guess the one success that we've had is actually as a company has worked with a particular insurance broker over several years. We've actually been able to reduce the premiums by running a program to get them into a certain framework and to be able to demonstrate clearly that they're meeting certain standards.
Absolutely.
And so, in thinking of insurers, some of I'll call it the less complex ones, they're looking for certain things, aren't they, which are going to be clear indicators that the company is worth insuring.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there are several hurdles that we can say with a reasonable degree of confidence that if you can clear these hurdles, you're in good shape for getting a decent premium or cover at all on your cyber insurance. Made a little list of them so I didn't forget any of them, and in no particular order, because these are all equally important in their own right. First one we touched on, multi-factor authentication, mandatory multi-factor authentication. And normally this will be framed in such a way that, do you use it for all of your cloud services? So that means your 365 environment, but it might also mean other things. If you use Xero for accounting or QuickBooks or some kind of cloud HR system or time and attendance system, they all apply as part of that MFA.
Yeah.
And the way you would be able to combat this is you have to build up a list of all of the cloud services that you subscribe to, and then ask those tough questions. It will be very surprising in this day and age if any of the providers out there didn't offer multi-factor authentication, but these things can happen. And knowing that that's the situation gives you the ability to do something in a timely fashion with it. The other ones that we see, patching. So do you make sure that your machines are patched? And they will often open it out to say, explain how you patch your machines.
Yes.
What is the time interval? Is it like once a year? Like that annual bath that you have, or is it you do it every month or every week? How does that look? And they often then tag on the back of that, how do you deal with emergency patching?
Yes. And the truth is if you've asked your MSP or your IT provider to fill this out, you also, folks, need to not take what you're given and just submit it to your insurer. It's worthwhile reading through and trying to understand what it is, which is why we talk about this meeting when it's completed, so we can explain what it is. So again, insist if you are asking your providers to fill out this form, insist that they explain it to you and what the chances are. So that was number two. Other things.
Training is often one that's mentioned. So do you have a training program? Do people know how to spot phishing attacks, and do they know what to do if they receive a phishing email, and do they know what to do if someone tells them to change the bank account on for a customer, or all of these kinds of bits of training stuff. So that's often one that comes up. And again, depends who it is. It may be seen as a red flag, it may not be, but it comes up frequently enough that it stands you in good stead if you can say you're doing something in that space.
But of course, it's you need proof as well. It's not enough to say, yeah, people understand about phishing attacks. What you need to demonstrate is that they've undertaken a course, which has been recorded in terms of the outcome, and that they've passed it. So, we talked often before about simulated phishing attacks or videos and things where you watch it and it's recorded. The fact that you've watched it and you recorded it and you've got a score as an employee, because you can be sure that if somebody got phished and gave information away, the insurer will ask that person what training they've had. And what would help a great deal in that situation is to say, here's what they did, and they scored 100% on their things, on all their courses. So it was very unlikely, very unusual that they got phished in the end.
It wasn't through a negligence by the company. We're taking all reasonable measures to try and educate our staff, and that's kind of when it gets into that. And I think the important thing that just spins out of that, actually, that's kind of important, is the insurers won't want you to prove anything until you need to make a claim. Yes. But it's worthwhile when you're going through this with your MSP or IT service provider, get them to give you the proof so that you know they can give you that proof. Because if you're saying, yes, we do this and we can give proof, and you can't, that's then also slightly awkward too.
Okay. What else would insurers be looking for?
Let's have a look. Proof of email filtering. So you don't just take the very basic filtering that 365 offers, but you have something a little bit more comprehensive, whether that be the Microsoft product that comes with Business Premium, or whether that be a third-party tool such as Mimecast or Proofpoint, and others are available. But whether you're doing something like that, very occasionally they will talk around some of the specific capabilities. Can it do this? Can it do that? Again, what they're trying to understand is email as a major vector of attacks. How well are you protecting the stuff that's coming in?
Sure. Okay.
This next one is often a bone of contention with organisations, and this is the removal of local administrative rights from people's computers.
Oh, it's so much trouble. It's so much.
It is, and it's a huge. This is a huge red flag. Like lack of MFA is a huge red flag for most insurers.
Yes.
Because it means that you don't have full control over the estate, because people can do pretty much what they like on their PCs, irrespective of your good intentions.
Yes.
So that's absolutely something that will cause a problem. That one can be quite quick to fix. It can also be very painful and noisy to fix. So it depends on your organisation. But yeah, the sooner you can look at that one, the better, because that is a major one. Secure configuration is one that often crops up. So, are you hardening your machines to any known standard? Microsoft has some standards. There are other third-party independent standards out there. The key point here is that out of the box, things are not secure. They're not secured to a hardened level that is appeasing the insurance companies. And then the final one that I've got, and we're seeing this crop up more and more, particularly in the second half of this year, is organisations being asked if they're using an EDR, an endpoint detection and response tool. And we touched on this on previous podcasts. Basically, the gist of it is that antivirus is only any good at seeing things that it's seen before. Most ransomware, which is what a lot of insurance companies pay out towards the SMB side of the market, is against ransomware attacks, is custom rolled. So it's never ever been seen before. So antivirus just doesn't do anything. You need something that can see behavior and can then also take action against that. So if necessary, remove the device from the network. Again, antivirus can't do these things. And we're starting to see that become more and more prevalent. I wouldn't say that's a red flag just yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if next year insurance companies start taking a harder stance on that.
I mean, let's face it, insurers don't like paying out. They tend to insure things which aren't to be claimed on, which is why they're getting much more. I mean, 10 years ago, they were struggling to sell cyber insurance because people couldn't see the need. Then they were selling cyber insurance to anybody in sight because it was good premiums, and then we've seen some significant people remove themselves from the market and not offer cyber insurance, and the people that are left are nailing it down to make sure that if they're going to insure you, you've got to be in a good place. You've got to be secure. You've got to
be a low risk to them, yeah.
You've got to be a low risk to them, and that market is only going to get harder in the next couple of years. And you may have the opportunity. Now, will you be able to shop around? Yes, but the number of people you can go to is getting less and less. But also, you're going to have to be pretty good state before you can get insurance in the future, and some things will become increasingly uninsurable.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think this is one of the overarching reasons why organisations that adopt a cybersecurity framework or a cybersecurity program end up with better outcomes, because they're not picking point solutions for things that they know about. It's actually exposing them to all of the things that they don't necessarily think about, but that are really important.
How do, in your experience and what we've seen, how do insurers react to a business having Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus, Toby?
It's always very favourable. Always very favourable. Slight segue off the insurance. I was working with an organisation who had a supply chain questionnaire.
Yes.
And we got to page 4 of the questionnaire. And because this was a questionnaire that could only be done online, so we had to sit and run through it side by side. We get to page 4, and it says, "Do you have any accreditations, cybersecurity accreditations, etc., etc.?" This particular customer had Cyber Essentials Plus, so we tick the Cyber Essentials Plus box. Click next. Takes us straight to the end. Skips out 20 pages of questions.
Well, that's nice,
because their perceived risk value to that organisation was such that Cyber Essentials Plus was sufficient.
Yes.
And it basically said, well, if you're doing CE Plus, okay, we don't need to ask you any of this more stuff.
Okay. Now, it's worthwhile just pointing out that Cyber Essentials is or has been historically a bit of self-certification. And Cyber Essentials Plus is a little bit more rigorous in that it's an independent examination, effectively. If you are Cyber Essentials and you're filling out your insurance, you've got to be doubly honest about the your achievement of Cyber Essentials. You've got to be absolutely spot on and be honest with yourself or with your organization if you have achieved it fully and properly. Because if there is an incident and it turns out on inspection that Cyber Essentials was achieved by not fully understanding what was required in the nicest possible way, then your insurance claim may become invalidated.
Absolutely, yeah, and there's enough. It's a really difficult, because things like Cyber Essentials, they are self-certified, so they are laid out so that it's relatively accessible. But there are certain things that if you can easily put the wrong answer. Let's say, again, trying to be nice.
You can interpret, and you can say, "I think this means this."
Now the accompanying guidance for Cyber Essentials is pretty good, and actually it makes it quite clear. The problem is if you don't follow the guidance, you can end up down a bit of a rabbit hole. I mean, a great example would be around mobile devices, and we have this conversation all the time with customers that are doing Cyber Essentials. We have to make it clear that on mobile devices, the ownership of the handset is immaterial. If it has company data on it or accesses company systems, it's within scope, even if it's somebody's personal device. And so it has to then meet all these different criteria. Now that then normally opens a huge can of worms about, well,
Yes.
I'm not putting that software on my machine. I'm not being told when I've got to upgrade. I'm not putting a PIN code on my device. All these kinds of things.
Yes.
Um, but
But
that's one thing where you could just say, well, what's the path of least resistance? We'll just pretend those ones don't exist.
now, here's a tension, folks, that you need just to be aware of is that if you've decided as a business to go for cyber essentials, and you're under pressure from the commercial department. This never happens in real life, by the way, to attain cyber essentials because you've got a contract you're trying to win who won't deal with you unless you've got cyber essentials. You might interpret the rules in a certain way to make you achieve that cyber essentials accreditation to win that business or to qualify you into winning business. The problem is with that is if you're then later asked to fill out a cyber insurance questionnaire to attain cyber insurance, and you've not, how can we put it? You've been economical with the actuality, I think was the expression once used in court by someone. Then you could find yourself stuck between, or find yourself stuck in a difficult place. Trying to explain why you said you were qualified in this way or you had this accreditation, which actually you might not have qualified for. So be very careful if you are the person filling out both. Absolute integrity, absolute honesty. And if you can't get the accreditation because certain things aren't right, go and put it right, get it done. If you need to, get some help and win it with absolute integrity and honesty, because that will pay out. It's when it all goes horribly wrong in the end, and you've got insurers refusing to pay out, and somebody questioning why you got it in the first place. It could be a very difficult place to be. You went on.
But
Okay.
no, absolutely, it is, and I think that is the slight danger with things like cyber essentials being used to form commercial offerings is that there's an additional pressure to be able to say we've got them, and it may mean that corners get cut with the best of intentions, or we'll come back and we'll do that or whatever. Ultimately, cyber essentials is that first rung on that ladder of adopting a framework, of doing things in a prescribed way, in a predefined and prescribed way, not what feels right or what can we afford, but what is the right thing to do. And a lot of the stuff isn't expensive. A lot of it is procedural. We're going to get rid of the local administrators. We're going to have MFA. These are things that are not hugely expensive. They are just things that you have to educate people on and make some certain decisions, which may be tough decisions, but they need to be done. But ultimately, whether it's for winning a contract or whatever, it will put you in a better position going forward. It'll make everything stronger. And so, it will help with insurance. It'll help with those tender and those bid processes too.
I suppose the truth is that if you are filling out these forms and winning these accreditations, but also doing the insurance questionnaires with the intent to do something, so you can get that insurance or you can get that accreditation, then you must do it. And it's not an event. We've said this before. It's not an event. It's a process. You've got to keep coming back to it and make sure it's constant, because typically what you achieve in terms of accreditation is out of date the day after. You've got to make sure you're returning to the processes and keeping them fresh and clean, and you still do what you said you were going to do and what's good for your business.
Yeah, and the first time you do something like Cyber Essentials, there will be a big uplift, almost certainly, because you've got to get your house in order. Absolutely. But then, unless Cyber Essentials changes massively, which typically tends not to change that much year on year, it should just be maintenance and upkeep. So the second time round shouldn't be anywhere near as painful.
So that is true, absolutely. Toby, thank you very. We just love talking about insurance and filling out insurance forms. So everyone, if you see one of these questionnaires, by the way, don't try and fill it in yourself, but do be prepared to pay your provider for the filling out of it. And because the other thing about that, if you do that, that has to be a good quality response as well. If you want something for nothing, the quality always goes a bit, I suspect. But there you go. Right, Toby, thank you very much. So that was episode 16 of Threatsafe, all aimed at people who are responsible for IT. And if you're doing the insurance and sorting that out, you are responsible, but not executing. So there you go. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much, Toby. See you next time. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to Threatsafe. We hope you found it enjoyable and informative. Please reach out with any comments, feedback, questions, and we look forward to seeing you soon.